Welcome to the Wildspire Conversations podcast. You get to be a fly on the wall for my intimate coaching sessions with inspiring entrepreneurs who are changing the world. I'm your host, Stephanie Benedetto Padovani, wild creation coach and soul storyteller at The Awakened Business, where I help coaches, therapists, and creative entrepreneurs craft an irresistible message and broadcast it to the world. In each conversation, I'll ask curious, playful questions, challenging us to connect with the deeper purpose and joy of what we're here to do. We may experience one or more of the following: articulation of their soul's message and mission, life-changing stories, insights, ahas, and wisdom nuggets, ideas for new products, services, or businesses. Truth is, I have no idea exactly what will emerge, because there's no agenda for this conversation. Anything can happen when we step into the unknown of infinite creativity, and that's where we're going to play. It's time to get Wildspired. Meg Roundell Greene, a business and confidence coach for ambitious moms, is my guest in this Wildspire conversation. She asked for a deep and honest exchange of ideas, the kind that you don't get to speak about in daily life. At first, I expected this conversation would be about something taboo or bizarre, or the kinds of secrets that we hold in our hearts. But I was pleasantly surprised to find that instead, we end up discussing space and silence and how to find deep inner peace. Meg helps ambitious mothers start and grow online businesses so they can enjoy a life that works for them. She has 19 years of senior corporate experience working with global brands such as BMW and Procter & Gamble on their marketing and branding strategies. Her career has taken her from national publications, including Marie Claire, Look, The Spectator, and Women at Home, to tech giant LinkedIn, where she worked with global companies on creating social strategies. After taking time out to spend with her growing family, in 2017, she realized her true passion lay in helping ambitious mothers create success on their terms that worked around family priorities, and created her coaching business to enable amazing women to do that. Meg works with her clients to create a clear plan to attract their dream clients, get massive visibility, and grow unshakable confidence. Her mission is to help create more empowered and successful female business owners in the world. Join us for a hypnotic conversation that I suspect will leave you feeling relaxed, present, and slightly tranced out, as it did for me. Meet Meg Roundell Greene. Hi, Meg. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Stephanie. Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. So I wonder what will happen today. This is I love when I ask that question, when I ask that of my day or of a conversation or of anything, like, I wonder what will happen, because it puts me into this space of curiosity and like curious expectation, not with an idea of what will emerge, but just an openness to seeing and being curious about whatever appears. So, yeah. So if you could, let's see. So we have this time together with which we can do anything. It's like the clay that we get to play with. So if you could, yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking about how I want to phrase this. Yeah, if you could create anything with this time together that would be really, really extraordinary for you, like amazing, what would that be?
Wowzers. Okay, I love that question. So I think what would be amazing to create is a very deep and honest exchange of ideas and concepts that you just don't get to speak about in your daily life.
Oh, cool.
So, we're in kind of online space, business space, and I feel like there is genuine connection. However, you don't really get past the kind of surface niceties a lot. So it'd be super interesting to see where this goes and talk about some big ideas. Talk about what you believe in, how you feel about what's happening with the pandemic, like some some serious stuff, but also just interesting stuff like, what are you thinking about the future? How does it feel to you? Just stuff that you would, soul searching stuff, if that's not too much to ask.
I don't think anything's too much to ask. We'll have to see. So a soul searching, deep conversation, deep and honest exchange that goes beyond the surface into something that's really a soul searching. That's interesting. So, well, what is that for you? Like you said something about what you don't get to speak about on a daily basis. So what do you not get to speak about that you'd like to talk about?
Interesting. So I guess what I don't get to talk about, and I'm talking mainly about my obviously interactions with friends and business colleagues and clients, is like the real stuff that happens day in, day out, like the real roller coaster of emotions that you will go through on any one day, and giving that some space and giving that some grace as well, because we're not limited to happy, sad, excited, angry, disappointed. You can feel those four things in the space of 3 seconds for different reasons, but not know why. It's just super interesting to really take a moment in time, say today, and just say, what actually happened today? What was I feeling? How did I talk myself out of the feeling or into the feeling? How did I use that feeling, or did I just ignore the feeling?
So what if we even make it smaller than that? What do you think? Because this is, we're co-creating. What if we just talk about what we're feeling right now? Like the now.
Sure. Scared.
Yeah.
A bit nervous. Of what's going to come up. And excited. And I kind of have this almost weightlessness feeling right now of I'm about to dive into something, which is cool.
Ooh.
How about you?
Well, I feel delighted at that idea of weightlessness. Yeah, that's quite blissful. And the idea of diving in deep. So what else am I feeling? Oh, it goes so quickly, right? So there's also, I'm not really paying attention to, occasionally I have a thought about what am I supposed to be doing in this conversation, which comes with some feelings of doubt or, what is Meg's experience and am I living up to it? Oh my God, I'm living up to her expectations. But mostly I'm not really paying attention to those. I feel yes, I feel excitement too, that curiosity. And, when I ask myself, what would what am I feeling that I'd like to notice that maybe I'm not noticing? Oh, yeah. So there's what I'm noticing as I ask that question is that there's a certain push or a rush or a doing this. And I think it probably comes with a feeling of pressure that is kind of that's like a surface thing, right? That feels in one way I could describe it as a surface thing. And I'm do I really want to be experiencing that? Or would I like to just kind of drop into maybe what's underneath that? That's what occurs to me.
It's interesting. It's very rare that we take that time in any given moment in your day because we're just busy doing, just to sit and have that experience, unless you meditate, which I am terrible at. I'm trying to practice more. But it's just feeling it in your body, and it's strange how it does come up in different parts of your body. I'm feeling a lot in my chest right now. I don't know if you kind of do any spirituality or energy work, all that kind of stuff. I'm very new in that area, but it's interesting just to feel where you feel things in your body. So yeah, how does the curiosity manifest in your experience?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Curiosity is like it's like being under a waterfall is how it appears to me. Like it washes over me. It's sort of like it feels more or less full body. Like a lot of times the more curiosity is like an opening to me. It feels like an opening versus excitement is like a little more directional and usually like core-ish.
Yeah.
Usually stomach, heart, chest, something, right? Like, but it is different. Like there's a different quality of excitement. Like we might use the same word, enthusiasm or excitement, and yet we can experience it with all these different nuances and subtleties.
Yeah. Interesting.
So what else would you really like to talk about right now?
I would really like to, I guess, talk about how as humans, we can be more present for ourselves and for other people. I've just seen a lot of distraction, a lot of online noise. Like what does it look like to be more present and to be more in the moment and in your body? So this is something I work at because I can definitely feel when there's a disconnect. I don't know if you've had a similar situation where you feel not kind of grounded, but it'd be interesting to talk about kind of how you look at that and how you've seen that play out, especially as a business owner, speaking to entrepreneurs who tend to push themselves quite hard. Like, what does that look like on a daily basis for you? Like personally, have you experienced it?
Well, yeah, I think that's actually part of our human experience, certainly for mine. I'll talk about my human experience of coming in and out of the present, you know. Pretty much any time when I talk about being in the spin of thought or in a thought storm, I'm not being present. This is what comes to mind. So one of my clients and friends is a therapist, and she started asking the question of her clients, where are you? And not geographically, but are you in the past? Are you in the present? Because inevitably, whenever we're most likely, if we're in an experience of anxiety, we're in the future. And if we're feeling depression or sadness, very likely we're actually in the past. And this question has proven miraculous with some of her clients because they start asking themselves this and they can realize, I'm in the past. Let me come to the present. There's a question I like to ask sometimes of myself and others, which is, what problem do I have right now? Do I have one? If I do, if there's a real problem, I'm probably dealing with it.
That's such a great question to ask, because we only have one day at any given time, or one moment at any given time. So I love this concept that when the day's finished, you pull the door down behind you, and you don't let it come in to the day you're about to have. And it's a great way of thinking about your goals in a way, but it's also a great way of just reminding yourself that you're still here, you're still alive, nothing terrible happened, and you're all good. Because so I feel that worry is such an intense but kind of insidious emotion, and it's such an expenditure of energy, especially with the pandemic and everything that's happened, that it will use up so much of your valuable energy resources spent future pacing or future prophesying when you have no control over these things. So living in that moment, in that day, and then going to bed knowing that you did all the things that you should have been doing that day, that will help you just manage it, I find.
What is it like to really experience that? Like, let's just do a little assessment for a moment. This occurs to me. And like we can give ourselves a scale from 0 to 100. So just checking in, like on a scale from 0 to 100, how present am I?
Yeah.
You know, like, or where am I?
Yeah.
And like, what would it be like to be really present? So let's see, where do I get? I'm just going with whatever number comes to me. I'm getting like, all right, I'm getting like about 70% present. That's interesting. I just made that up.
That's good. So I'm feeling around 65 because I can hear my kids fighting in the other room. So half of me is like, well, no, a third of me is over there trying to break up their fight mentally. And the rest of me is here.
So what if we ask ourselves, like, what would it take to be more present? Just like, would I like to be more present? And what would it take to be more present? And just like notice that for a moment. Like, does it shift anything? I'm like, oh. Because the funny thing is that occurs to me is like, well, I am here. It's only, I just don't know it when I'm paying more attention to my thinking than I am to what's actually happening.
Change in my body almost when you said that, like almost like a kind of a settling downwards, which is interesting. So instead of being kind of up here, it's like rooted, feeling more grounded, feeling more heavy and connected, I guess. How does that feel for you? Do you feel the same?
You know, I can relate to what you're saying. I don't think it's how I'm exactly experiencing it in my body. How am I experiencing it? It's more like, yeah, I do feel more in me, less scattered out, but also it occurs to me to notice, like, okay, what if I can be, like, also have an expansive awareness that is present here. It's not like me being in the next room or me being in what just happened earlier, but it's actually me being aware of all of that, like kind of expanding. There's an exercise you can do, since we're talking about this kind of thing, that involves your peripheral vision. So using screens all day, like we typically do, we are in what's called foveal vision, which is this very narrow view, right? We're looking at our screens, our phones. And it's good for hyperfocus, but it's also good for a more sympathetic, it's more conducive of a sympathetic nervous system state, or like highly stimulated fight or flight, like, you know. So when we go into our peripheral vision, it puts us into a parasympathetic state, or a more relaxed state, where we're actually really aware, where I learned this in neurolinguistic programming. They call it the learning state, because we're actually in a light trance that allows us to take in more information and to really be present and aware and be in a relaxed learning state instead of the habitual. So the way that you can do this, now we're in different rooms, but you can find something. So if you look up at the corner of, like, go up to your ceiling where the wall meets your ceiling, just pick a spot, and kind of like one where you can look. Do you have a wall right in front of you, or do you have something? Okay. Yeah. So you might want to pick a spot that's a little further down, so you don't have to look up so high. And so just picture a spot there and stare at it first. Stare at that spot with everything you've got, and really, really intensely. And now doing it. Now continue staring at that spot and bring your awareness to the edges of your peripheral vision. So still staring at the spot, notice how you can see to the right, you can see to the left while you're still staring. And you might even move your hands at the edge of your peripheral vision so you can see your fingers and notice where that is. So now keep your awareness of the furthest extension of your peripheral vision
Yeah.
while you bring your eyes down and look back
Down.
at the screen. Yep, and you can look back at the screen or back at your computer, but kind of keep that awareness.
Oh, you can see me holding my hand out.
Yeah, oh, I did it too. So what is that like? What do you notice in your body when you do that?
It feels like just feels like my brain is doing something different. I don't know how to describe it. It's really interesting. It feels a lot lighter behind my eyes in a way. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a different sensation than anything I've done before. It's very interesting. Yeah.
You can play with this.
Yeah.
You can do it while you're meditating, but it in itself is a very meditative state. So what they say, and I have not really been able to test this because it's hard to be, they're probably right. Whoever taught me this, right? They say that you can't be in it, you can't hold a negative emotion when you're in that peripheral vision.
Wow. That's so interesting. I wonder what's going on in your brain to allow that to be true. Like what's happening in that parasympathetic.
Well, so like emotions, like thoughts are moving through us all the time. And I think that when we are in a parasympathetic nervous system state, when we are feeling present, when we are feeling calm, they move through us and we don't tend to mess with them so much. So it's really hard, actually, if you do a mindfulness exercise, it's really hard to sustain a thought. So if you actually you have to keep thinking it. If you just notice a thought and use it as an object of meditation, it goes.
Yeah.
The same thing. So there's, I'm going to mention the resource I've used for this since we're talking about it. There's an app that you can get, and it is a paid app called the Waking Up app.
Okay.
And it's by Sam Harris, who is a non-religious, he's actually an atheist, I think, or he calls himself an atheist, but he's studied meditation for many, many years and mindfulness.
Yeah.
So it's a mindfulness app. He has little 10 or 20-minute meditations. And one of the exercises that he has us do sometimes he'll actually bring up a negative emotion or a negative thought that comes with an emotion and use it as an object of meditation. And in doing so, it's an opportunity to notice that there's a very short half-life when we're in a mindful state.
Yeah.
So that's what I suspect is happening. I don't know about the neurology of what happens in the brain. I know nothing about this. I only speak from my experience that, like right now, bringing my awareness to my peripheral, which even just doing that reminds me to do it.
Yeah.
I feel much more present. Like I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. I'm just being with it. I feel more relaxed, which is beautiful. Thank you for suggesting this direction. I'm like, ooh. And it is kind of, for me, I can experience it as like a light trance, which is beautiful. It's a very receptive, present state where it's quite pleasant, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's very nice. How funny. I love that. And I love tools like that. Are so interesting because we're so often not aware of these things as they move through our bodies. It's just like a constant kind of TV flickering. Do you know what I mean? You're not really like the thought will come and then you'll feel crummy for some reason, but you don't know why. But then if you're more present, you allow the thought to come. I wonder why and how, I guess, the thoughts don't move. Is it when we're locked in fight or flight that the thoughts and the feelings get stuck? And then we feel like
what do you notice? Like, what's your experience of that?
I feel like my brain can definitely take a well-worn track around a certain subject, because it's the one that it's used to, and it will revert back to this kind of like a groove on a wooden thing. I don't know, I'm not a carpenter, but whatever that would would be, like, because it's used to it, and that's the habit, and that's the words or the language or the beliefs that is a kind of the default setting. So it's getting out of that and becoming aware of it when it happens is the first thing, I think, because otherwise it just feels, you do feel heavy and you don't know why, and you don't know why you feel bad. And it can be a number of factors. It could be the weather. It could be your hair doesn't look nice. Like, 100 million things can combine, but they don't need to mean anything in your head. They don't need to go into this track of whatever it is, whether it's feeling negative or being negative about yourself. So maybe having that mindfulness and the presence, and in that state, you allow the thought to come in, you allow the thought to come out. And it doesn't get trapped into that cycle, I guess.
Yeah. So there is this experience of, and there's a lot of scientific talk that we use to reinforce it, of, I think I certainly have had an experience of habitual thinking, like something that has been with me, a pattern that repeats, even a thought, that the voice in my head that repeats. There was one that used to come up a lot. I don't think I've heard it in a long time, but it used to say, I try so hard. I don't even know what that means. I try so hard. It was like, the feeling of it was, I try so hard and they never understand, and I never get it right, and I'm never understood. I mean, that was an awful habitual thought that I had.
Yeah.
So there's this language around it, and this feeling of the well-worn groove, that the rut that we get stuck in. And there's language in neurology, and again, like I don't have awareness, I don't have knowledge on that, but they talk about the neural pathways being familiar. And I just like to wonder, because the more I think the key in what I heard you say that I think is so beautiful is that willingness to, first of all, be present enough to be aware, oh, there's that habitual thought. Okay, what if I don't have to do anything with it? Or what else? I don't have to think that. What else could I think? What else is here? And immediately there's a space that wasn't there before. And I suspect that whether that is a well-worn thought or not, it's just as simple as choosing another one to hop to a new neural pathway. And the only reason we don't is because we often aren't aware enough to know, oh, I'm thinking something. That's not me. I'm not stuck in that. I could choose this.
So interesting. Do you think we need to, how do we let go of them? How do we create that mental space for the new one? Or do you actually just create the space in creating the new one?
Like, well, I'll tell you my experience of it. And like, I would encourage you to sit with that one. That's a beautiful, like, to notice it, right? Like this is what we can do with ourselves, with our thinking, with our state, whatever that experience we're having is, when we are curious, right? Like, we're just curious. Like, I need to figure this out. I'm just like being curious right now. And I have done this type of curious looking at myself and feeling for a while. So my experience of it is that, because your original question was like, how do we, I don't think we have to let go. We just have to stop holding on.
Yeah.
Because this is my experience, right? My experience is thought goes by that I don't like, and I'm like, ah, da, 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 da. So I start like wrestling with it. I'm like, no, I don't want you. I don't want you. No, I'm not looking at you. I'm not looking at you, right? And so I'm perpetuating it, actually. I'm actually creating, it's like becomes like a cycle. Yeah. And so if I get present, there's immediately more of a sense of space. So am I creating it? I think it's always there. There's nothing to do. It's like I just come here. Yeah. And all of a sudden I have more of an awareness of space. And when there's an awareness of space, even if it's only like a teeny, teeny little sliver, it feels like, to me, it's infinitely different between me wrestling with the thought and me seeing it there and still being aware of it and maybe still feeling whatever feelings are associated with it. But now I'm not engaged in it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a little, the more space I have, the more likely I am to go, what else? And look in a different direction. Right? Does that make sense? Does that resonate?
Yeah,
in any
totally.
way?
Yeah, totally. It's like that space allows something else to come in or be created or form. I just have a vision of being in a room and like fighting a bat in the corner. Like you don't know how big the room is. If you're only focused on the bat in the corner, you might turn around and be like, oh, whoa, this place is huge. I didn't realize it was so big. So yeah.
I love that. And that resonates with me too. It's like there is, when I'm focused, and that's again, like, this is thematic for me right now. Like this foveal vision is focus on the bat, the bat, the bat, the bat. And then like this peripheral is, oh, there's a whole room. There's a whole room of possibilities here that I didn't even know was here.
Yeah. But I like your analogy of you don't have to release it. You just don't have to hold on to it. That's really good. Because I think there's a lot of talk around releasing negativity, releasing self-doubt, releasing. It's like, if you don't have someone to help you with that, how do you do that? That sounds hard. It sounds like years and years of therapy hard, in which you probably should do, right? But if you don't have that or access to that or even want to do that, there are other things you can do. You can fill that other space with things that make you feel really great, or just release your hold on the things that don't make you feel so good, or at least understand that you're holding on to them.
Yeah. And that in itself, there's a world of difference between feeling like you're at the mercy of something and to realize, oh, I'm holding on to this, which means that therefore there's a possibility I could let go, even if I don't know how in this moment. Like I could at some point. I could. What if I let go? I don't even know what that would be like, but I can now conceive of it. It's like, that's just a little more space, right? Like just a little more, little more. Yeah. What I'm hearing in so much of your exploration, Megan, you can tell me if I'm hearing this right, is that like you're having an increasing an awareness of and feeling drawn towards noticing what's happening in your body, which is one of the beautiful ways we can become present with what is. Our body's always here. That's why people often go to the breath, and that there's something in that gives you didn't say this, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like there's a different perspective from there, right? Like now you're aware of it. So there's a possibility that you can be aware of something else, or that's not all there is.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Tell me more about that, what you're seeing in this, because it sounds like you're in this exploration.
Yeah, I definitely am. I feel like there are some basics I need to go back to basics in a way of how to ground myself and how to get focused and how to feel better, basically. And one of those is being present, and another of those is moving my body, definitely. I had an interesting experience actually with a Reiki practitioner, and she saw me twice just to do actually massage, but she's also a trained Reiki practitioner. And the first time she was like, oh yeah, you're super tense and your energy, she would talk all about this energy. This was years ago, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just want a massage. So just remember the first time she's like, oh yeah, your energy is really busy right now. And she was just massaging like over my top. And then the second time I'd like been sleeping so much better. I'd just been doing a little bit of exercise, but my mind, like the state of mind was so much more calm. And she was like, wow, what did you do? because your energy is totally different. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And that was really interesting. This was like 5-6 years ago. But I do find I make conscious efforts to get back into my body and feel grounded and move my body more, because the mental clarity and awareness just ramps up massively when I have that sense of connection. It's really interesting. And for some people, it will be very different, I'm sure. For some people, it's, you know, whatever it is they like to do, watching films and eating chocolate, both of things I really do enjoy to do as well. But I've kind of found a formula now which helps me kind of give me so much more energy, which I'm really pleased to have almost stumbled across.
Yeah, tell me about that. What is the formula, if you would say that, and what's that like for you? How has your energy shifted?
Interesting. So I would say definitely being mindful of again, you talked about devices and computers, so I turn everything off by 9 p.m. And I read a book, an actual physical book, or I do listen to something but don't look at the screen. And then I try to go to bed and sleep 8 hours. Sometimes it doesn't work. I have lots of children who come in and bother me and, you know, wake me up. But on the days it works, it's great. And trying to do just even 20 minutes of exercise a day. It doesn't even matter what it is. I'm not fussy, just something that gets my blood pumping. Or it could be even like yoga or something. But that seems to be a pretty good formula. And also knowing what gives me energy and what drains my energy. And I think what gives me energy is stuff like this. I love connecting. I think I'm a typical extrovert in that I get very energized by and with other people. So if I don't have that for a long time, I feel a bit depleted, whereas some people get all of it from within. So that's their idea of heaven. And then they find it very depleting, talking and engaging. So I think just knowing those things about myself has helped to kind of fine tune.
Yeah. So that's a real journey of just, and I love that you said you'd stumbled across it, right? Because I think that so many times it's like we have a question, we have a problem or a quandary that we're in that we don't know how to get out of. And for a time, we probably do a lot of wrestling with thinking and trying to figure it out. And this is my experience. I'll come back to me. That when I stop doing that, doesn't really matter where I am or what I'm doing, but common places, shower, going for a walk, out in nature, right? Like, or getting so absolutely aggravated with it that I just collapse and stop, right? What am I doing then? I'm present. I've stopped trying. I've stopped messing with the thought. And then inevitably, like, this thing occurs to me. And I'm guessing that that's probably because it's happened. I see it happening for myself and other people, other clients. That's the nature of the stumbling across, is that then you can hear your wisdom when you're no longer stuck in the noise of all that thinking. And it says, what if you turn off your devices earlier? What if you really create space for sleep for yourself? What if you did just 20 minutes of exercise a day? And it's like these little things, and you go, well, that kind of sounds like a good idea. Maybe I'll try it. And it's so simple. And because there's so much information out there, everybody's going to tell us a different way to do it. Where you have to get up at 5 a.m. and other people who say, no, it's not that. It's this, right?
Yeah.
But you have found, just by asking a question and being present enough with yourself to begin to know yourself and listen, you found this beautiful practice or formula, the structure. We were talking a little earlier, like some structure that allows you to just have more energy, feel better from what you're saying, right? Like I really think that it can be that simple. And I know that it does not feel that way. Certainly doesn't for me when I'm in the midst of that thought storm.
Yeah.
But when I do find these things arising from within me, it's simple. Like some people call them aha moments. I call them duh moments. They're like facepalm moments. Like, oh,
Yeah.
why didn't I see this before? Duh.
That's brilliant. I love that. And also I've just realized it really helps with your relationships with other people as well, because you realize you're in control of yourself and your actions, and just being aware of how your actions and reactions affect other people, especially with kids, because they look to you to be the role model. So why argue with them and shout with them, and, you know, answering back, and, you know, me becoming frustrated and cross doesn't achieve anything. They can be frustrated and cross because they're expressing an emotion, and it probably will not be very pleasant for me to experience that from them, but I'm the grown-up. And, you know, that's how they learn how to express in a more fruitful way, maybe because you have learned not to react to everything like a 6-year-old, essentially. I think don't get me wrong, yeah, they really do irritate me sometimes, but, you know, every parent has this, and I think being aware of how you're reacting is really, really important when you're setting an example to other people, which we all are in our daily lives. Everyone's, you know, people watch you, people see how you show up, so you can be the best person for you, but also that means you're the best person for other people.
If you didn't have to be the best person, either for yourself or for anyone.
Sorry.
That's okay. Like I'm being with all the distraction. That's a really interesting thing, right? What if I can be with all the distraction and be okay with that too? And just allow it to be a part of this experience that I'm having, even when I get like my attention is yanked, like, oh, okay, my attention was yanked, and I can be there and here, and then here and here. Ooh, that was trippy. So if you didn't have to be the best anything, what would you want to be? What would that be like?
Oh, I'd be so lazy. I'm a naturally very lazy person. I would happily lay on a couch all day long and read books and paint my toenails and eat chocolate. I mean, that's a genuine answer.
Have you ever really? So this is interesting because, and I'm just going to curiously poke at this a little bit and see, but this is a conversation I've had in many forms. It seems to be, and I have this going on in me too, that if I allow myself, if I take the pressure off to be the best or better or to be productive or whatever the thing is, that I've used to motivate me. It is one way to motivate myself to get things done. If I take that off, the fear is, because I've done it for so long, that I will do nothing, that I will lie there on the couch and eat chocolate and watch Netflix all day long. And I've been playing with that because, like, is that really true? And I've been playing with, what if I release the pressure? Does it actually help me? I mean, I know I've used it to motivate myself.
Yeah.
Do I actually need it? And again, like as a question, as an experiment, like you can go right back to it. That is really easy. You know, like, and I'm finding that there is another motivation that arises because in our natural state, look at children. Do they have pressure to get stuff done when they're very young? They are just these naturally creative, playful people.
Yeah.
And so are we, except that we have this thinking about how it's supposed to look and making ourselves do one way or the other. So my question is like, oh, if I let myself, if I'm present, like, is there another inspiration? Is there another motivation like curiosity or creativity or enthusiasm or excitement, inspiration that emerges? And I do find that it's there. Not that it's not that there's a right or wrong here, but just as an exploration, like, oh, what comes up for you around that? What do you think?
It's an interesting one because I have been known to, I really enjoy bored, like empty time. I really do. I love it. I kind of really enjoy it. I don't feel bad about it. I relish it so much. But on the other hand, I do push myself hard. So taking that away, I haven't really ever played with taking that away. I've always been conscious that I am giving myself time off, as it were, but I haven't really given myself time off because it's still like, I still want to do the things. So I don't really know how to answer that. Sorry, I've got children and bedtime.
The pressures of which we speak, here we go. All the things, right? The things.
Absolutely. But I do feel I don't feel it as pressure, interestingly. So I did an experiment about a month ago where I stopped doing all of my activities, like my business activities, for a week. Because some things were working, some things weren't working. I was getting tired, and I just thought to myself, I'm just going to stop everything and see what happens. So I needed to see what that would look like for myself, and nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel stressed. I didn't feel bored. I just rested. So I don't know if that answers your question or...
Yeah, it's more of it does. And just as a question for inquiry for myself, for you, if you would, I think it's something we can live into. Like there's not I don't know until I try it, these things. Like, what does that even look like to not, like I realized that I was carrying this, and I've dropped a lot of it. I really have dropped a lot compared to where I was, even a year, 2 years, certainly 5 years ago with I must do. But I realized there was this undercurrent of like, if I don't keep this pressure on myself, I'm using the word pressure, it might be something, but like this pressure to do things, be productive, get stuff done, then I won't do. And I was like, is that true? Let me just notice what happens if I so I've done some experiments.
And what did happen?
Yeah.
You just play and be creative, or? So
it's not like on off switch, right? Like, no. So what I've seen, like I've given myself permission. Usually it's like a day or a weekend. Like I'm just gonna maybe I'll be my experiment this weekend of like, I'm not going to pressure myself to do things. What I am noticing is that I do things, and often I do things that I would like to do that are probably on my list of things to do. Like there might be a business thing that I end up doing or something I end up writing that I wanted to write, but I'm doing it without the pressure.
Sure.
Like, oh, so that is possible. I wonder if I did that more, like not as I have to get rid of pressure thing, but just as an experiment to sort of try on, notice, and see, just like you did with that week. And I think that's beautiful. And like, maybe you'll be moved to do a different experiment or to lengthen it or to just say like, what if I do things, but I do it without pressure?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Right? Like, how do I even do that, right? Like it's like the brain goes, boy.
I love, and I'm like, I might flip that around and say, how would you do it differently, and what would you do if you knew that your result was guaranteed, that it's not going to work out for you? How does that make you feel different? Because I don't see it as pressure necessarily. It's more of a like a force, some kind of movement, some kind of motion. But if I know everything's going to work out for my highest like development and learning and all the good things that I'm after, how does that make me feel differently about it? And that's a good question to ask, because then that feels like, oh, well, it's going to work out anyway, so I can stop worrying in a way and just be and be a bit more relaxed and do what feels actually more enjoyable and not force myself into something that I'm not, which is very regimented, very scheduled type of person that you kind of think you need to do if you're in business. So yeah, I'm letting go of that concept that it has to be like a certain way, and then it can just be the way it is.
That's beautiful. So is there something, I'm wondering, that occurs to you in pondering that question of, what would you do if your result was guaranteed? It kind of, you talked about how you would be in it, but is there something? Would you do something different if your result was guaranteed?
Yeah, when you're feeling that kind of worry and that anxiety and the pressure of like, I've got to do it like this, I've got to get it done by this date, you're not really being who you are meant to be, because you're not, that's not you. That's just the internal kind of voice that's ruling. That's your ego or whatever you want to call it ruling, as opposed to being certain it's going to work out. So what can you help somebody with? How can you show up as you, as your best kind of foot forward, I guess? If you're not scared, if you're not worried, if you're not feeling fearful, how does that person show up? So that's something I've been thinking about doing more of, and getting more comfortable, feeling uncomfortable with that.
And so is there something new that's arising as you experiment with that? Like something new that,
I think it just feels easier. Everything feels a lot easier in a way. Like there's no more, I don't feel like I'm overthinking before I act. Instead of like in the past, it would be like deciding which thing to be posting or deciding which way to go, or, there was always this conflict, this internal chatter. So without the chatter, you just kind of go with what feels good to you in the moment, and that's a lot easier. And I find that it's a lot simpler. I feel a lot clearer, just kind of mentally clearer, because there's less stuff going on. There's less stuff to worry about, because I've made a conscious decision kind of to stop worrying and just lose that feeling. And it comes up, it definitely still comes up for sure. Like you can't just not worry about things. But it's about just divert. It's kind of like a toddler. You just divert them to play with a different toy. So I'm diverting my toddler brain to play with more fulfilling and fun toys than the worry toys.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that way of thinking. And that's an innocent way to frame it too, right? Because there's nothing, the toddler's going to play with what it's drawn to play with. We're going to be drawn to play with the thoughts we're drawn to play with. And we're probably not realizing sometimes that we can play with other toys than the worry toys. We can play with like the curiosity toys, or the excitement toys, or the wonder toys. I like the wonder toys. Oh my God. I want to play with more wonder.
Where'd you get them? I need some of those in my life.
Yeah, that's lovely. So what else?
I feel it's just an interesting topic and subject to think about. I think we're kind of endlessly fascinating creatures, and why wouldn't you be fascinated with what's going on upstairs, like in your brain? It's endlessly interesting to me, and it's endlessly interesting to me that, you know, people make the choices they make, why they make those choices. I just think it's fascinating, and like having some time to think those things and ask those questions is the priority, because without time and that sense of expansiveness you were talking about, it's you can't ask those meaningful questions because you're busy in the act of doing, and not in the act of thinking. So next time when I'm laying on the sofa eating chocolate and painting my toenails, I'm actually doing very important inner work.
You know, that's a funny thing to say, and in so many ways I think that's more true than we realize. And you know, there's the practical level of, you know, just taking a break from doing all the things.
Yeah.
But there's even a deeper way of like, what if I eat chocolate as if it matters? What if I eat chocolate as my expansive mindfulness act? I mean, like, think about that, eating chocolate like that. Like, if I'm actually being aware of it instead of just like stuffing in my face while I watch something, right? Like, that's a whole other experience. It's like the monks who take a raisin, a whole meditation of eating a raisin, which is like you look at it and you feel it and you experience it and you like put it on your tongue, and you like, there's a whole sense of a full sensory experience of eating a raisin. And you know, raisins are cool, but like if you take that, this is interesting. I'm having this idea of like, it's like taking something very specific, but it's also very expansive at the same time, like letting it, like allowing that to be so much more than it normally is to us. Like, I've heard someone say years ago, and I've loved it, I've repeated it ever since, that if you're bored, you're not paying close enough attention.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a sign of, you know, just no imagination if you get bored. So next time you're feeling bored, like, being bored is really good for you. It's really good for children to be bored, because they have to go inside and find their own resources. And it's the same for us. It's good for us to have those moments of nothingness, because then cool stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Although I can't remember the last time I was bored. I would love to be bored right now. Not now. I mean, you know, in life. Maybe tomorrow.
Well, maybe there's an alternative to what used to feel like being bored. Maybe it doesn't now, because you're okay with that space.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's more like space, because a lot of what I've heard, what I heard you say was like you're finding your way of creating that space, because, you know, what used to be labeled as lazy and non-productive and wasteful time, you're now seeing as the very source of inspiration and where the cool stuff comes from.
Yeah, definitely.
And like creating a life with moments of that. You know, it's hard sometimes running a business and having children and a family and all of these things, but there are little moments, like a breath. It can really be that simple. Like, we can find it because the present is always here. We're just not always being in the present.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I love that.
Yeah. So this feels like a good place to sort of begin to wind down our call, which is very interesting, Meg. Thank you. This was a very different journey than, not that I really had an expectation. I was like, oh, we're going here today. And I feel very trippy because I've still managed to kind of like keep myself in a peripheral state. So I'm like, yeah, Meg, hey.
Love it.
hanging out here. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what is your biggest insight from this conversation today?
Oh, I think the kind of transformational things that can come up when we really put our attention into important stuff. And I'm not saying this very well, but when we really actually focus and take a moment to put into words what our experience feels like, that's super interesting. And I don't do this like with my friends. Like, I mean, maybe some people do, but it just feels really cool and interesting to have that back and forth and to see, just get really into, how someone else takes, like what someone else's perception of that and feeling is. That's really interesting. How about you?
From this, I'm just going to answer it as it occurs to me. Because I had like a whole bunch of chatter. I'm just going to like disclose here because I think it fits the topic of our conversation. I had like a whole bunch of chatter about like, oh, well, it has to be something that's like this. And I'm like, no, just this. So I'm having the experience again of, oh, I could just show up and not really think other than what drops in, that I can just be in an experience and let it carry me.
Yeah.
Oh, that felt really good to say. Thank you. Like I felt it as I said it, like being in it and letting it carry me. And I'm living my life more and more from that place of dropping the have-tos and the shoulds and it needs to be this way. And I'm, what to me is pressure, right?
Yeah.
Feels like. And instead just relaxing and letting it move me. Because it's there and it does.
Yeah, that's great. That's so cool.
So thank you. Thank you for this experience, Meg.
Yeah.
And if someone were to want to reach out to you, where's the best place to find you?
So the best place to find me is on Instagram. You can check me out at MRG_coaching. So I'm up there. I show up and I do lives and stories and all kinds of stuff. So you can follow me there.
You do stories. What kinds of stories?
Me just walking the dog.
Megan the dog. Okay, so I'm just going to toss this in here because it occurs to me as a parting thought. I wonder what would happen if you had something like, maybe you're already exactly doing this and that's why I'm saying it, but like you and the dog and this space where you just talk about what your experience feels like and share what you're seeing in your own experience and ask those questions, like the kinds of questions that we were asking here, because I think you're right. There are people who are craving that type of a space, and there are all kinds of amazing and beautiful things that grow from that.
Yeah.
And who better to create it than you, who are also craving it? Like, why not?
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. So it'll be Sunny, me and Sunny. He's just having a snooze right now on the bed. I love that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure.
You're so welcome. And for me, thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining me for today's Wildspire conversation. If you'd like to receive a weekly Wild Creation email from me filled with more inspiring stories, marketing experiments, playful questions, new podcast episodes, videos and freebies, and anything else I'm playing with, go to theawakenedbusiness.com/wild creation. Until next time, may you know yourself as the gorgeous wild creation you are.